You know, in a world that is just absolutely overflowing with information, what's the one skill that could actually save us from drowning in all that noise? Well, today we're digging into a big idea from the Meda Foundation that might just be our last true survival skill: critical thinking.
So let me ask you this. Do you ever feel like you're just drowning in a sea of information? You spend your day scrolling, reading, watching, but at the end of it all, you just feel more overwhelmed than, enlightened? If that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. In this explainer, we're going to explore exactly why we're all feeling this way and, more importantly, what we can actually do about it.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle the problem, what the source calls the noise economy. Then we'll get into the real-world consequences, the serious stuff. After that, we'll discover how we can actually train our minds to think more clearly, dive into two really practical frameworks, and finally we'll wrap up with a pretty provocative question. Is critical thinking our last truly human advantage? Okay, let's dive right into the problem. We love to think we're living in an information age, right? But the Meda Foundation argues we're actually in a noise economy. See, the issue isn't a lack of information. It's a crippling, overwhelming excess of it. This right here, this just perfectly captures the mismatch we're all facing. The complexity of our world, the sheer volume of data, opinions, and choices, it's become a tidal wave, a tsunami. And yet, the mental tools most of us are using, our gut feelings and intuition, they're like a tiny canoe. It's just not built for the storm we're in. And honestly, just trying to stay afloat is exhausting. So what's the big deal? What are the actual consequences of this noise economy? This isn't just about feeling overwhelmed or a little stressed out. As we're about to see, the costs are very, very real, and they touch every single part of our lives. Let's start with our health. It's scary how easily people can fall for slickly packaged pseudoscience and misinformation online. When we start confusing what's popular with what's actually true, we open the door to preventable diseases, and that has truly devastating consequences for families and whole communities. And it's not just our health. Our finances are seriously at risk too. The source points out that without some critical inquiry, we become incredibly vulnerable to sophisticated scams and these get-rich-quick schemes. And we're not talking about minor mistakes here. These things can lead to financial ruin, wiping out a lifetime of savings in a flash. And believe it or not, even our democracy is at stake. When we're not thinking critically, we become so much more susceptible to emotional manipulation and targeted misinformation. And this doesn't just sway an election here or there. It can have a profound, long-term, corrosive impact on our entire political landscape.
But here's the good news, and it is really good news. We are not powerless against all this noise. This is the turning point. The most crucial takeaway from all this is that clear thinking is not some gift you're just born with. No, it's a skill, just like reading or learning to play the guitar, that we can all actively train and get better at.
So what is critical thinking, really? Let's just break down this definition. It's the disciplined process of actively and skillfully engaging with information to reach a rational conclusion. The key word there is active. It's about being a participant in your own understanding, not just a passive consumer of whatever information gets thrown at you. Man, this quote from Aristotle just perfectly captures the whole idea. It's that ability to hold an idea in your mind, turn it over, look at it from all sides, all without feeling that immediate pressure to either accept it or reject it. In our world of instant reactions and snap judgments, that kind of intellectual patience, well, it's a superpower. So let's break that big idea down into 4 key abilities. First, a critical thinker learns to spot and uncover bias and manipulation. Next, and this is a big one, they practice withholding judgment instead of just having that knee-jerk reaction. Then, they actively look for and scrutinize other options. And finally, they learn to rely on actual evidence, not just raw emotion. These are the real building blocks of a more rational and informed mind. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually do it, in our day-to-day lives? This is where it gets really practical. We're going to explore 2 powerful frameworks from the Meda Foundation that can help us all think more clearly and critically, starting right now. So the source gives us 2 different but equally powerful ways to approach this. Think of it like 2 different operating systems for your brain. The 5-step rational process is like a clean, logical piece of software you can install. The 4-step evolution-based system, on the other hand, is more like an upgrade to the hardware you were born with. It works with your brain's natural tendencies. Okay, first up, the rational process. Let's say you're buying a car. Step 1 is asking the right question. Not what's the coolest car, but maybe What's the best value car for my specific needs? Then step 2, you gather real info. Safety ratings, maintenance costs, honest reviews. Step 3 is asking those critical questions like, is this glowing review sponsored? Then you consider the long-term implications, like how that car payment is going to affect your 5-year financial goals. And finally, you explore alternatives. Maybe a used model or a different brand is actually the smarter choice. See? It's a system to get you from a messy problem to a clear decision. Now, this second system is fascinating because it's all about upgrading our natural instincts. Imagine you're hiring someone for a job. Your gut makes a snap judgment. This system takes that and supercharges it. Step 1 is detailed observation, not just the resume, but how they communicate, how they solve a sample problem. Step 2 is clarifying the question. You move from, do I like this person, to what specific skills are they showing that solve this role's biggest challenges? Then you evaluate multiple variables, their technical skills, their communication style, their potential for growth, instead of just going with a good vibe. This lets you form a complex, nuanced conclusion, elevating your basic instincts into genuine insight. So, where does all of this leave us? Let's zoom out and think about the future of thinking itself by asking a pretty bold question. In an age of incredible technology, is this our last true human advantage? And this really drives home what's at stake. With the rise of AI deepfakes, algorithm-driven echo chambers, and misinformation that spreads like wildfire, the ability to just think for yourself has never been more vital. It's no longer just a nice-to-have skill, it's becoming an absolute necessity for navigating the world we live in. So, what do you think? As artificial intelligence gets better and better at processing data and even making decisions for us, what's left for us to do? Is our capacity for deep, independent, and critical thought, is that our final human advantage? It's a huge question, and it's one we're all going to have to grapple with in the years to come.